بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Continuing with Riyad As-Saaliheen, the chapter of the chapter of visiting Ahlul Khair, the people of goodness, sitting with them, being in their company and loving them, and seeking a dua, invocation from them. Last week we concluded with a hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala an. And this is the hadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Tunkahul mar'a li arba', that a woman is married for 4 reasons. لحسبها ولمالها ولجمالها ولدينها فاظفر ذات الدين تربت يداك. She's married for 4 reasons. First of them being لحسبها, for her lineage or social status or social standing, for her wealth, for her beauty, and for her deen. Choose the one with deen. تربت يداك. Your hand will be filled with dust, or your dust will be stuck to your hand. Literally, that's the literal meaning, that your hand will be filled with dust. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Tunkahul mar'a. A woman is married for 4 reasons. Now, this statement here, is it an order from the Prophet ﷺ or a suggestion from the Prophet ﷺ? Or is the Prophet ﷺ simply informing the reasons people get married to women? Some of the scholars, they say, this is an order or a suggestion, something highly recommended by the Prophet ﷺ. So the Shafi'i school of thought, they said it's recommended to marry a beautiful woman. Some scholars say it's recommended to marry a rich woman. Some say it's recommended to marry a woman who comes from a high lineage or has a high social status, because they take this statement of the Prophet ﷺ as an order, but not an obligatory order, but rather order of something which is preferred to do. It's mustahab to marry such women. So the Shafi'i school of thought, another ulama, they hold this opinion. However, the most correct opinion is the Prophet ﷺ is just simply informing the attributes which people look for when they're getting married to a woman. Now, is informing of this, is it restricted to this only? No. In majority of cases, this is the reason why people marry women. But people have various reasons, but in majority is this 4. For example, there's another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, Tazawwaju al-wadud al-walud. Marry women who are loving and could bear much children. So he made this another reason, but this reason is not mentioned in his hadith. A person might marry a woman to look after his children, for example, babysit his children. Why? Maybe his wife has passed away, so he marries her for that reason, and this is permissible. A person may marry a woman for knowledge. She might be more knowledgeable than him, and he wants her to teach him. So these 4 that's mentioned in the hadith, in majority of cases, this is what people actually look for, these 4 attributes. So the first attribute the Prophet ﷺ began with is lihasabiha, that a woman is married for hasabiha, for her lineage or her social status. Now, marrying a woman for this purpose, for a lineage or social status, there's nothing wrong with it, as we mentioned earlier on. And a man might have an intention to do it in order to raise his own social status, because lineages, there's certain families or certain tribes that associated with them is aristocracy, nobility, power. So he may do it strategically to raise his own status. For example, maybe he's not a national of a particular country or resident in that place. So by marrying into that tribe, he raises his status, and it might even help the da'wah. So you find some people, when they go to other countries, they'll marry into certain tribes strategically. And he'll marry a woman who's from a tribe that the majority of them, they're not Muslims. But the wife became a Muslim, but strategically it helps the da'wah, it helps him to settle there, he has a strong family to support him. So if you look at many kingdoms, including the King of Saudi Arabia, you find the king, he married into many different tribes in order to unify these tribes under him. So a man might do so, and also he might help his children. Because when you marry from a noble family or noble wife, people always say the uncles of such and such is such and such. It may aid. However though, it should be coupled with what? Marrying for the deen as well. It shouldn't just be for that purpose only, also for the deen. So you can marry a woman for her social status, her lineage, but it has to be coupled with the deen. If it's just simply alone for her social status and lineage, it may cause her to look down upon you. It may cause her to see herself as being above you. Because the nature of things is, and we cannot deny the nature of things, in most cases men raise the status of women. If a king marries a woman, she becomes a what? A queen. If a queen marries a man, she's just the queen's husband. If a man marries, and is a president of a country, marries a woman, she becomes the first lady. If a woman who is a president marries a man, he's just the wife of the president, or the husband of the president. Khalas. It doesn't raise the status in most cases. And a lot of marital problems, like I used to deal with, and many people deal with, if a woman is of a higher status than a man, when the problems start, she will mention these things. You know, I shouldn't have married him in the first place. It was beneath us. We're from a more noble family, honorable family. And if a man has any sense of dignity and pride, it will really, really hurt him to hear this thing from his wife. And in most cases, when she starts to mix with her cousins, mix with him, if she doesn't fear Allah, meaning she marries, she got deen. A woman that fears Allah will never say such a thing. She will mention these things. So you shouldn't marry simply only for a lineage. But if you do so coupled with deen, it's fine. So the first reason the Prophet ﷺ mentioned is for her hasab, a lineage, or her social status. The second thing the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, limaliha, for her wealth. And an example of that, as you see nowadays, that some people do marry women for their wealth. Classical examples, if you go to where places tourist is popular, you may find a 19-year-old boy marrying a 72-year-old woman. limaliha. ويترقب, is waiting بين العشية والضحى, night and day for her death. So he may inherit her wealth. So this is an example that a man may marry a woman simply for her wealth. However, again, there's nothing wrong with marrying a woman for wealth, as long as it's coupled with what? With deen, and not just simply for money. Men that marry women simply for their wealth, and wealth has many meanings. It could either mean she's got a very good job, or she comes from a very wealthy family, or she has inheritance, or in the time we're living now, it could be a nationality. The fact that she has a Western passport, for example, that some men, they would do it just for the sake of the passport, marry a woman for the sake of the passport. And men that do this, and they don't look for aspects of deen, it shows a weakness in their deen. They don't want the deen, so they don't fear Allah Azza wa Jalla to do anything. So you find some of these sisters that get into this situation, and what happens is, after the first week, if that's his intention, or the first month becomes clear, he will say to her, for example, look, I got a lot of debts. And a woman out of sympathy, mercy, love for her husband, she doesn't want to be disgraced in public, she wants to help him. He said, can you help me? She may loan him some money. Some women, they go as far as selling all their gold to help their husband. And on top of that, he might use that money to marry on top of her. In some cases, these men, they even say to her, give me your mahar. The same mahar which he gave her, he said, I have to take a loan for it, you know? And she gives him the mahar. In some cases, I know sisters that have sold their houses and said, we're going to invest it in a business. And in some cases, the brother may be sincere, might be a good brother, and he married for that intention, but only that intention. And the business goes bad. It goes bad. And women, when they become upset from their nature, is they'll start to speak. The first people she consult is her family, her sisters, her brothers. They say, what kind of man is this? You know, does he have any honor? Borrowing money from you. And that's why, we're not saying something Sharia-wise, but in most cases, it is not advisable to borrow money from your wives or ask your wives for money. الرجال قوامون على النساء. The men are the firm handhold above women because of that which Allah Ta'ala favored them above the women. وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا, because of what they spend upon the women. You could spend every single day upon your wife, buy this, buy that. Rarely would you find a man complaining. Yes, we may complain about shopping, or why is this finishing so quickly? But rarely would you find a man complain. But women, it is very difficult. Not every single sister is a Khadija radiallahu anha. That's a rarity. But men, either Muslim, non-Muslim, pious, unpious, it's from their nature to want to spend on a woman, to buy gifts for women, to do for women. Even the non-Muslim women, you go out with them and they talk about all this feminism stuff. When the dinner's over, she's expecting you to pay and be a gentleman. So it's the nature of men. So generally, it's not advisable or something good. And most sisters are generous like that I'll give you, I'll help you, but try as much as possible to avoid that, taking money from your family, because it's not within their nature to spend. It's not within their nature to feel they have to work. In some situations, like where we are now in Saudi Arabia, our existence here is dependent upon what? Upon work. That's how you get resident permit. So many of brothers to go to Saudi, any of these countries, maybe his wife is more qualified than him, she has a very good job. So he's under her kafala. He's under her sponsorship. Jayid? So his existence depends on her what? Working. And this brings a lot of marital problems. Because women are of a nature, if they feel they don't have to work, they always want to work. I want to get a job, I want to get a job. And she enjoys the work. But the moment psychology is in her head, psychologically, I have to work, it starts to affect her. There's a difference between wanting to work and needing to work. That if I don't work, we're going to have to leave the country. If I don't work, all that pressure on the burden of a woman is not within her nature. Even in Brazil now, the non-Muslim women, new diseases or new, what do you call it again? Changes have started to happen with them, health changes, negative ones, such as heart problems. Because the women in South America, due to their culture, they're very feminine. They never used to work. Now that it becomes industrialized and women are working, they're developing heart problems. It's not within their nature to go out and do those things. So even in situations, I know brothers, even if you're going to be poor, I'm going to be the breadwinner. Your money is your money. Even if she's a millionaire, your money, he goes out and he works. And he gives to the family, doesn't take from her at all. And part of that is our existence in this country. Don't ever make your wife feel like she has to work. You know, okay, look, we've got rent, you pay half, I pay half. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all, at all, at all. And in some situations, you have people that put their family or leave their families in foreign countries. In necessity, it's permissible 3 months to give her a right to go back. Sometimes they do for 1 year, 2 years. You know, and some we can understand, although not permissible from what they call third world countries. But some are even Westerners. But he knows by doing so, he could save more. You know, so he's here eating kebsa. And, you know, they're back home, say 2 years I'm going to save this much. I'd rather be, and I advise the brothers this all the time, I'd rather be eating cake and custard with my wife in England than being here eating kebsa, and it's not worth it at all. So, limaliha, for her wealth. And my woman, simply for wealth, that doesn't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one day she will look down upon you. And when the problems do arise, and they will arise, she'll speak about it to everybody. You know, you might want to marry, you might even have an argument. She will tell people, I gave him this, I did that for him. And you've seen from experience in life, they will say it. I did this for him, I did that for him, I did that for him. And even when she gave you as a gift, she will ask it back. Even when you said, look, let me just buy it, I'll pay you back. She said, no, you owe me such and such, you owe me such and such. And a man was a true man, got any sense of pride, it will burn him. So limaliha. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَلِجَمَالِهَا, and for her beauty. Meaning, even if the woman is not of a high social status, she's not from a great lineage, and she's not wealthy, a man may marry her simply for her beauty. And you find in many cases, this is the reason, Walaikum Assalam. You find in many cases, this is the reason man might marry a woman. That you find women that were nothing before, but simply because of her beauty. She is not from a high social status, she's not from a great lineage, but simply for her beauty, the man will marry her. Simply for the beauty. You find women that are not wealthy, you know, at all, no wealth at all, but for her beauty, he will marry her and make her wealthy. And when she divorces him, even though she had no status, she gains status because of him. And when she divorces him, even though she didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, she takes half of his wealth, according to their law. According to their law. So, oh man, this beauty is dangerous. You give her status might even become better than yours. You give her wealth and she divorces you on top of that. But there's nothing wrong with marrying a woman for her beauty. In fact, it's even advised. The Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahabi, "Nadarta ilayha?" Have you seen her? Did you look at her? So it's permissible, or it's actually advisable to look at a woman and marry her. But it shouldn't be the sole reason to marry a woman. Because a man that makes it his sole reason to marry a woman, beauty, he'll find no way out of infatuation and obsession with this woman and obeying her in everything in which she does. Even if it means he gains the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because he's infatuated with that what? With that beauty. And not with deen. He's not looking for deen. If it was deen and beauty, when she goes against the deen, he will not obey her. But if it's simply beauty, it's dangerous. And once a woman knows as well that she knows she is beautiful, and you take her as such, and you only married her for her beauty, she use that to manipulate and dominate her husband. And in the same way you find her beautiful and she gets a kick out of that, and that's all you find in her, she knows if you find her beautiful, other men find her beautiful, and it will increase her into tabarruj. She'll go out seeking that attraction from all men too. She'll not dress properly. She may flirt and do other things because she knows that beauty is what drew you to her. And she'll go out beautifully like that likewise. Also, when a man marries a woman simply for beauty and she has no deen, beauty, it comes and it goes. When they get to older age, you look at some of those women that were stunners as they stay in their age. When they get to older, you can never tell. But if she has iman, the nur will still be there. You find some older women, they're still very, very beautiful, 60, 70. But majority of those women that are not on the deen or non-Muslim, when they get to, you will be shocked that this is the woman. Ugly as anything. As anything, the beauty will go. But she's got deen, the light of iman will stay. And the light of these women is that the light of the fire Allah Ta'ala mentions Surah Al-Baqarah. That ذهب الله بنورهم. That what's the ayah again? فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. That when Allah Ta'ala has lit up, or when the fire has lit up everything around them, Allah Ta'ala then takes away the what? The light. So the fire will remain, but the light of her beauty is gone. And the fire that's going to remain is the fire of her evil character and her tongue. How many, oh brother, when the shuyukh was saying that he meets yad'u fi sujood, he's praying in sujood. This same wife he married simply for beauty, that Allah takes her soul, just to get rid of her, that Allah Ta'ala takes her soul. These women that are married simply for this beauty, it gets to a state, his heart, especially when he starts practicing, he doesn't find her beautiful anymore. And that's the most important thing. I see a woman in your heart, he doesn't find her beautiful anymore, in his heart or in his eyes. But it's too late. Maybe she's got 5 children for him now. He can't get rid of her. He's stuck with her for life. It's too late, because it was simply for the sake of beauty. So there's nothing marrying a woman for beauty, but it shouldn't be the sole reason which a man, he marries a woman. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَلِدِينِهَا, and for her deen. And this is why this hadith comes in this chapter. Because the chapter is what? Ziyara ahlu khayr, to visit people of khayr, and be in their company and sit with them and visit them. So the best company you could have, the best person you could sit with, and the one you're going to sit with most of the time is your wife, your spouse. So therefore, you should definitely have a righteous spouse. Now when we started this chapter, we said ahlu khayr, who's at the top of people of goodness? The scholars. So if you marry a woman of deen, try to marry a woman especially that has what? Knowledge. It is very important. Because deen is not that the fact the way she dresses only or prays only. Deen is based on the ilm. Marry a woman who has knowledge. Because sisters today that don't have knowledge, or even brothers that appear to be practicing, sometimes the Coca-Cola fizz, the fizz will go up, you will die. But a person who has knowledge is thabit. And this is what I advised myself and the brothers as well, that when it comes to study circles, we all need those phases, those encouraging, motivational speeches, but try to have a basis of solid knowledge, whether it's fiqh, whether it's aqidah. Because sometimes you find you listen to these speakers on YouTube, motivational speeches, and a year down the line, somebody will ask you the simplest question. You know nothing, because there's no foundation. For example, Ramadan is coming up soon, and when you ask many people rules and regulations regarding Ramadan, they don't know. And they may have been practicing for 20 years. Very important rules and regulations. So before Ramadan, I advise you, I think there's some programs starting. Rather than going to these fizzes or these iman boosters only, try to do or go to classes that are very scientific, studious classes, that are structured classes for rules and regulations concerning Ramadan. And you find your Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, spiritually also be better because you're doing it correctly. It's very important. So it's important, my sister who's practicing, but she has knowledge. Yeah, especially, not even if she does, but especially she has knowledge. Now, if he marries a woman like this, it's a reflection also of his own deen, because he wants to marry a woman that obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by marrying a woman that obeys Allah azza wa jal, all the other things, the lineage, the wealth, the beauty, all of these things are mata', they're provisions of the dunya. But by marrying this woman, it's a win-win situation, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ad-dunya mata' wa khayru mata' imra'a salihah." The dunya is a provision, and the best provision is a righteous woman. So you've gained everything. On top of that, if you marry a super good practicing sister, mashallah, you've gained everything. But on top of that, a woman that fears Allah, and she knows her husband is attracted to such and such a type of woman, she may even look for another wife for you that has that lineage, that has that beauty, that has that wealth. There are sisters that actually look for wives for their husbands and propose to sisters for their husbands. Feel the awiyah, brother raise the eyebrow. Are you with us, Akhi? You're daydreaming now, subhanallah. Like, where these, naam, there are sisters that go and propose and look for wives for their husbands. She may even bring this to you, inshallah ta'ala, a suitable sister. And when you marry a practicing sister, it's as though you went to seek counsel or advice and consultation. And the most sincere person in the world gave you advice. And who's the most sincere? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he gave you advice, and you followed the advice. Because most time people ask for advice, you find this. But in his head, he knows what he wants to do. He's looking for a seal of approval. So you give him advice, you waste 1 hour, 2 hours, try with the brother, but he already has what he wants to do in his mind. But when you marry a righteous woman, it's like you went to the most sincere advisor, the Prophet ﷺ. He advised you, and you took his advice. So Imra'a As-Saaliheen. And sometimes, or many times, people marry these women. She shouldn't be somebody who's disliked to you physically. You don't find her attractive at all. But so long as she's okay, wallahi, a beauty will grow in your eyes. You know, and many times people marry women and they're like, okay, she's all right. But due to her deen, the beauty, it grows in his eyes. And she'll grow beautiful in his eyes, inshallah ta'ala. And she's a pious woman. Now, also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the Hadith, "Taribat yadak." May your hand be filled with dust. Taribat yadak. It doesn't mean literally your hand will be filled with dust. Literally, it has two meanings. The first meaning is iftaqart. May you become impoverished. So the first meaning is may you become poor. The second meaning is not may you become poor, but rather is jumlatul ighra. It's a motivational statement or statement of encouragement to encourage you. Do this. The opposite of that will happen. Meaning you prosper, you'll be blessed. So it has how many meanings? Two meanings. So in this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the first meaning, it means may you prosper. Yeah? May you prosper. This is the meaning here. It doesn't mean you become poor. May you prosper. So it's a form or statement or the Prophet informing you of what will happen if you marry such a woman. The other scholars say this sentence is not a motivational sentence. Rather, this sentence is a conditional sentence. So we're going to go into the realms of the English grammar, but it's a very simple English grammar point. In English, you have conditional sentences, and a conditional sentence has two parts. Yeah? So an example of a conditional sentence, if you do not sleep early, you will wake up late. So the first part of the conditional sentence, if you do not, and the second part is, you will wake up late. If you don't study hard, you will fail your exam. So they say, taribat yadak is the first part of the conditional sentence. Yes? Meaning, your hand will be filled with dust. And what's the second part of the conditional sentence? What has already preceded, but they didn't mention it because it already preceded. If you do not marry a righteous woman, that your hand, so they take the second meaning here now. You understand? Which is, will you become impoverished? So if it is just a motivational statement, the first meaning applies, which is what? May you prosper. But if it is the meaning that you may become impoverished, they say it is a conditional sentence. May you become impoverished if you don't marry a righteous woman. So if we take it as a conditional sentence, we have to also take it as a what? A dua. Is as though the Prophet is making dua against the person. So some scholars take this opinion, that it's a dua, the Prophet is making dua. If you don't choose a righteous woman, may you become impoverished. Like this. So they say it's a dua from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many examples of this. For example, the hadith in which Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, he said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asked him that, are we going to be called to account for that which we say? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ثَقَلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ أَيَكُبُّ النَّاسِ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ فِي النَّارِ إِلَّا حَصَائِدْ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. Mu'adh, may your mother lose you. Would anything throw the people into the fire other than that what they reaped or sowed with their tongues? So this also has to mean, it kind of be encouragement of Mu'adh to understand. If we take it as what? A statement of motivational statement. Or it could be conditional. That may your mother lose you if you do not understand. So it's either ighra, motivational, or conditional as a dua. So some scholars take it as a dua, that may you or may your hand become perished. And this is a serious issue if it's a dua, because we're living in a time that articles which I never thought would come out are coming out, or letters to many Muslim brothers want to marry non-Muslim women. It's a popular thing now that many brothers, due to the fact that they find these non-Muslim women, maybe they say more feminine, maybe more ambitious career-wise, she could help him organize his life, be structured, and they have issues. And these are brothers that marry Muslim sisters, they've had problems with sisters. But لا يفرق المؤمن المؤمنة. A believing man could never hate a believing woman. And this means you got your priorities upside down. This is a woman that worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She's a Muslimah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَأَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ. A believing slave woman, meaning a believing servant of Allah, female, is better than a mushrika, no matter how much she may impress you. Is a principle we have to put in our head. And that's why the scholars say, لِدِينِهَا, for her religion, doesn't only mean she's a practicing sister. It may just be she's a Muslim and that's it. So if that's it, how could you in your head say, you know what, I want to, and brothers choose this nowadays, some Muslims choose nowadays, I want to marry a non-Muslim, they look for non-Muslim women. I want to be with a non-Muslim woman. What if she has children for you? You know, what's going to be the fate of those children? You understand? And that's the right of a child upon you. Part of the right of the child, to show, subhanAllah, the beauty of Islam, that the child has a right upon you even before he's born. Like one person went to one of the scholars and he said to him, you know, what can I do for my child right now? What are my rights of my children upon me? He said, it's too late. He said, what do you mean it's too late? He said, you should have chosen first and foremost a righteous mother for the child. A righteous mother. So the right of the child does not even begin from when it's in the fetus. It begins before the child's even in the fetus. And part of the right of that child is to choose a good and appropriate mother. Anything could happen to you. You could die, you may divorce. I know people that are divorced, but they're happy because they divorce good women and the children are in safe hands. I've met some scholars or some tulab al-ilm that I'm asking about their children from wives they've divorced, and mashallah, yeah, their children, mashallah, and they'll be like, it's not my work, it's the mother, you know. So it's important to choose a righteous woman, lidiniha. So I find it shocking this time that many, some Muslim men, they actually choose to marry non-Muslim women. A Muslim woman, no matter how bad she is, what weaknesses she had, if you look at things and you prioritize things with the scope of the Sharia, she's better than a non-Muslim woman. And of course, it's not permissible for a sister to marry a non-Muslim man anyway. But you find some women as well, they compare these non-Muslim men, these non-Muslim men, these non-Muslim men. Forget all the goodness they could do. All the goodness. The best of the non-Muslim, the worst and the worst of the Muslims is better than him. The worst Muslim is better than the best of the non-Muslims. And that's a principle. If you weigh things out, worship Allah, doesn't shirk. The worst sin is shirk. Associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But people don't look at things with the eye of the Sharia of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the Prophet ﷺ said, لِدِينِهَا فَضْفَضْ ذَاتَ الدِّينِ. Choose the one with deen, تَرِبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Meaning you'll prosper, you'll be blessed, or if you do not do so, your hand will be filled with poverty. And poverty doesn't mean you may become physically bankrupt. You marry a woman for her beauty, for her lineage, she'll bankrupt you in some cases. I see many people that are bankrupt in the literal sense, or she'll bankrupt you mentally. You bankrupt you mentally, completely. You'll be finished. Up here, you're zero. Completely gone. Nothing in the head. Now, the fawaid from this hadith and the benefits from this hadith. The benefits from this hadith, first and foremost, is there's no issue for a woman or for a man to marry a woman for any of these reasons. Because the Prophet ﷺ acknowledged them, but he didn't reject them. Yani aqarraha. And this is a part of the sunnah. The sunnah is also what the Prophet acknowledges, and he kept quiet. So he acknowledges this reason. He doesn't reject them. The issue is if it's simply only for that only. So there's nothing wrong now with a brother, for example, saying, I want a sister with green eyes. Because for him, it's such an important thing. He may never be able to lower his gaze. And it helps him to protect himself from falling into zina. There's some people, beauty is their thing. And he needs somebody very beautiful. There's some people, lineage is their thing, social status. And like we said before, it's not advisable in most cases to marry a woman who's of a higher social status than you. And that's why in Sharia, there's something called al-mukafa'a. Suitability is only in deen. Deen, we're suitable in deen. Like the hadith of Rasulullah, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوا. If somebody comes to you, you're pleased with deen and his character, marry him off. So somebody comes to me for my daughter, I'm pleased with his deen, I don't know anything bad about his deen, his khuluq, his character. Because it's not just deen, some people may have deen, but their character is very bad. If you please it both, فَزَوِّجُوا. Do it, marry them off. If you don't do it, be fasad fil ard. And that corruption could either be with your daughter, he finds another way to get her, or he may go and do some other madness, or your daughter may do some other madness. It will become fasad. And I say this many a times, that people due to nationality, tribalism, no. Even though they're pleased with the deen, the character, no. So, some scholars say the suitability is in deen. Some other scholars say, no, it's wajib, that they have to be compatible in terms of social status. So a person who's educated to a degree level, a sister, should not marry a brother when he graduates from high school. Some take it as obligatory. So now we have two conflicting opinions. But the middle opinion is, it should be considered. It should seriously be considered in most cases. That if a woman is of a very high status and the man is of a lower status, that suitability should be taken into account. Because you get women that are very educated and she is the product of her environment. And she marries a man that's uneducated, it does bring problems, even though they could both be practicing. You understand? Because they're just not compatible. Compatibility is not only in deen, and we make this mistake many a time, that they're both practicing khalas. No. The way they see things, their outlook on life, the level of conversation and how they can engage on an intellectual level, even culture, has to be taken into account. You know, for example, a dominant culture, for example, is usually that of the man. So I could be British and marry a sister from Sri Lanka, India, Nigeria, Kenya. In most cases, they follow you. But if a woman, and if I'm educated, I may bring her up. But if a woman is more, it's very difficult to pull a man along with her. So the issue, the scholars say, of suitability or compatibility in terms of social status is something that should be seriously considered. That's the middle part. That you should look at it. If she's not that practicing and you feel it might affect, you could reject on that level. That, you know what, socially they're not compatible. For example, she comes from a high class family, she has maids, she has drivers, she marries this person. Unless she's very pious, going to find it very difficult to live like that. So social compatibility is very important. So there's nothing wrong to marry for beauty, nothing wrong to marry for a social status, and nothing wrong to marry her for her wealth. Also, from the benefits of this hadith is a man can marry a woman simply for her deen, even without any of these reasons, the beauty, the lineage, or the wealth. He could marry her simply for her deen. Also, the greatest reason which a man, from the benefit of hadith, he should marry a woman is for what? her deen. طيب. Also from benefits of hadith, we know that these things that the Prophet ﷺ has mentioned are the great reasons, majority reasons. But you can marry a woman for any reason. Any reason. That's permissible shara'an. Any reason. To look after your children, she could bear children. And how do you know a woman could bear children? How would you know that before you marry her? Huh? Barakallahu fi. You look at nisa ahliha. Ahli baytiha. You look at the women in her family. So in most cases, not always the case, but in most cases, if you look at her mother and she has a lot of children, she comes from a family that bears a lot of children. You look at her sisters, the aunties. There's some women like this. You look at their mothers, she got 10 children. Her mother's sister, 15 children. You know, you look at the mother and she has a lot of children. Usually those women, they also bear a lot of children. So you could marry for that reason. You could marry for a lineage and so on and so forth. Okay. What about marrying a woman that you want to marry her? Because you could marry a woman for any reason. You want to marry her because she is a musician. Can you marry a woman for this reason? No? Why? Because the things the Prophet ﷺ have mentioned where you marry a woman for are not things which are either mubah, recommended, obligatory, but they're mubah, not punishable or rewardable. They may become rewardable according to your intention, and they may become punishable according to your intention. But there was never any muharramat, any haram reasons mentioned here. And marrying a woman who's a musician, you married her for a reason which is haram, because what she's doing is haram. So you cannot marry a woman because, okay, I can marry for any reason, I want to marry a woman who's a musician. You can't do this. It's not permissible for a man to marry a woman for haram reason, but any other reason which is mubah is permissible. And according to your intention, you may actually get rewarded. You want to marry a woman for beauty, to lower your gaze, you may be rewarded. You want to marry a woman for a lineage, to establish Islam in a village, in a town, like some Muslim men, they've married women in villages whereby the women are non-Muslims, the people are non-Muslims, and they establish Islam. One of my best friends, his grandfather came from Yemen, and he landed in the area of Uganda called Kasese. You could look it up on Google Map. His name is Sheikh Saad. He's a Yemeni. So the children after him, they're all called Saad. Saad Miqdad. He's a Yemeni. He landed in Kasese. Kasese, the people there, they're not even Christians, they're animists, you know. And he landed there, he started to do some businesses, and he married the local women. Yemeni man, he married all the black women in that locality. He had 4 wives, you know, and he has a lot of children. And his children after him, my friend, his dad likewise, has a lot of wives. His dad has 20-something children. So when he arrived in Kasese and he married into these tribes, through these women and due to their lineage, he established Islam in Kasese. And it became a very strong foothold of Islam. So according to that intention, a person may be rewarded. And even if he doesn't have the intention, he will not be punished, inshaAllah ta'ala. So this is the fawaid from this hadith, the benefits and the ahkam of the hadith. Any questions, inshaAllah? Now. No. Yes, when we went for Umrah to shave their head, but they don't complete all the rites of the Umrah because they'll prevent it from getting in. So he went to Salama radiallahu anhu, and she advised him that if you do it, they'll follow you. And this is an important thing about having a woman who's knowledgeable and sincere. 2 important things. And that's why Musa alayhi salam, when the young girl was advising her father, she said, "Inna khayra man istajarta al-qawiyyu al-amin." Hire somebody who is strong and is trustworthy. When you marry a sister, it's one of 2 things. If she has knowledge, she'll advise you according with knowledge. And if she's sincere, she'll advise you with sincerity. Sometimes our parents and our wives don't necessarily have knowledge, but because they're sincere to you, they'll come out with the best advice for you. And a non-Muslim woman, especially in affairs related to your religion, she cannot advise you as such. So man or woman who's got knowledge, she also directs you in the right way, a woman who's sincere. And it's very important, most cases, when we seek advice and counsel, there are many things you can't talk to brothers about people, but you talk to your family about. So if you have a woman who her focus is not just dunya, she'll give you advice, and it's very important. You know, most of us, we seek advice from our wives, if they're good wives, you know. Any other questions?
reverts will be considered in this last category?
Sorry?
Reverts. Those who convert to Islam. So those ladies, are they usually considered into the last category of pious?
Of a woman for her deen? Nah, definitely. So you can marry her for her deen. If she's a practicing sister, or even, like we said, it may not be for necessarily beauty's sake, it might not be, but of course she should be attracted. It might not be for her lineage, it might not be for her wealth, but the fact that this sister has become a Muslim, and to keep her strong upon her faith, you can marry her for her deen, you know, and to keep her strong, because it's advisable that these sisters, especially in a non-Muslim country, they are adopted into a Muslim family. Because one of the things that bring pressures in marriages for reverts, he's revert, she's revert. Things we don't even think of. Like for example, I could call my brother, ask for money. Eid day, I could go to my mother's, I could go to my father. When you have two reverts and they have no Muslim families, no cousins for the children to go to, no grandmother, no auntie, no grandfather, it's a lot of pressure. But when they have another Muslim family who's adopted them, it's usually advisable, I would advise brothers, if you could find a sister who's a revert or brothers who marry them to a Muslim family. Let them have a Muslim family too. You know, it's very, very advisable. So if you marry a sister who's a revert, it's a good reason too, to bring her in and to keep her strong upon her faith.